all, my name is Ruth G. Udente. Okay. I hesitated on this task that I have been asked to do tonight. But on behalf of Romy, you know, his very dear friend, why I accepted it. So you have to put up with all my, you know, I might reminisce and get lost. And but Rosalie and I, when we talked about it, we thought that there are many of us around here that really don't understand what Pag-asa, why it came about. Okay. Now you will all recall, most of us are martial law babies, okay? Martial law personalities, okay? And all of us, I knew why I had to leave the Philippines. I had no choice. My husband was in hostage, okay? And from then on, for my own safety and for what was going on there, he felt that he would be better, a better struggler, in the light of the oppressive situation in the Philippines and on behalf of the poor people, why he said, leave me behind so that I can be free to do what has to be done. So me and Rudy and Karen brought them over here and left the older daughter in the Philippines. All right. This is 1972. By 1979, I asked Ross, I said, when did we get organized? You know, it's hard to really recollect. I told her, I have it written down in my home in Tagaytay about Pag-asa. But I didn't have anything. So nasabihin mo na lang, 1979 siguro. Kung nandito si Dante Simbulan, maaari siguro ma-recall namin yung precise date. But it's between there, 79 and 80. By that time, in the Philippines, ang context dun sa atin, thank God, what's her name, Beth Ortesa is here, she's talking the three-letter groups, mga knock them, suck them, nam, lahat. So, I said, oh my God, sabi kong ganyan, yeah, that's true. All right, but the reason Pag-asa came together, in view of all of that context that's going on in the Philippines, ang main concern talaga ng mga Pag-asa members at the time, we were free thinkers. We didn't want to be pulled by the nose. We felt that we had to think our way through all the ideological positions that were going on in the Philippines. We felt that our group, we wanted to be free-spirited and we wanted to select a title which is really encouraging, and which tied in with the goal of the Pag-asa, which was to be in partnership with the struggling people of the Philippines, with the little contacts that each and every one of our members had. So that was how Pag-asa was created. It was for free-spirited. If you had your own connections or whatever three-letter association you had, it never was brought up in the community of the members of Pag-asa. Am I right or wrong? Yung mga miyembro dito, yung mga original. Right. Okay, all right. So, and Romy Capulong was always around. All of us know that in the community here in the United States, no? And he was always there to payo, nagpapayo yan siya, counseling, that. He was a lawyer. And he was struggling also, like all of us that came here, we were all struggling. And not knowing who we really are, why the trust was not there. But I'll tell you, the Pag-asa group, once we got to know each other, isang sigaw, isang salita, oy, mag-meeting. Mag-meeting yan. Bakit? Meron dahilan. Pupulong. Saan magpupulong? Saan tayo nagpupulong? Kay Ruth. Kung maaari lang magsalita yung mga dingding ng aking apartment, ay siguro maraming storya. Minsan ngayon, when I'm there inside my apartment, I look at it and I say, my God, these walls, And the people, the number of people who come to visit here, walang matulugan. Saan matutulog? Kay Ruth. Babae, lalaki, madre, pare, I don't care. Okay? Basta nasa loob ng pakikibaka. Alright. So, ngayong gabi, we are here together to celebrate the life of a wonderful human being. And I was talking to Nene. Nene, will you please rise? That is the beloved. Thank you. Okay? And Alex, where are you? Ito mga pamilya, they're here, very strong. Tayo. Ito po, isa sa mga anak ni Romy. Tapos lahat kayo mga apo, they come in very strong tonight, no? And magpapasalamat kami sa inyo dahil ang pag-asa ay masabi na maaari ba tayo yung mamahalang programa. So I said, sabi ko kay Rosso, naku, hindi mo ako maasahan dyan, may edad na ako. Ganyan. Ito lang ang kaya ko. Kung yun gusto mo, I'll be able, I'll do the opening, you know, and all of the details of the, why we are here tonight. So, and the rest of the program, they put this together. Lito. Just put that together and with Rosli. So tonight, I'm sure that all of you members of the family of Romy Capulong will really appreciate, you know, what has been dug out by the team who are going to be presenting, you know, the life that we're celebrating tonight. Now, I'm also supposed to do a little housekeeping. You know? Tonight, Pag-asa is broke, so we'll pass the hat around so that we can pay for the church and the janitorial services, you know. Yun pala yung pagkain namin na yun, pero yung dito sa simbahan, kailangan we have to, it is my home church. And I tell you, they were so nice, you know, to say, sure, you can have your memorial service here. So, then the other thing, no, some of you know that there is a biography of Dr. Dente. And so I thought that what a better place, sabi kong ganon, no, for to have a few copies here available so that some of you might be interested in, you know, having a copy of your own. And I'm just saying also that all of the proceeds is not going to the Prudente family. That's an investment for the poor, you know. It's going to a scholarship foundation for marginalized students or the Polytechnic University of Philippines. We might expand, you know, if there's a lot of capital that we get, we might expand it even not just for students at PUP. But as you well know, the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, the students over there are the poor of the poor, but and many of them are gifted, talented, and they can't afford to go to school. So that's where we as a family have dedicated the proceeds of this book. So tonight, we'll start the program. Some of you will be asked to say a few things about Romy, but there is a little program that they put together. So we're going to start out, Lito, am I right? No, we're going to start out with Lito singing, rendering. Put my glasses on. It says, Araw ng Lubhang Mapangaw. Mapangaw? Mapangaw? Ay, mali naman yung spelling. Mapanglaw. Nakalimutan mo yung L. Mapanglaw. And did you want anyone that to join, you know?
Yes, this song is a song of mourning for fallen activists. So if you would you like to join or know the song, then you're quite welcome. I'll sing it a cappella. Araw ng lubhang mapanglaw, lipos ng kadiliman, nasadla ang kanyang buhay. Dahil sa'yo, nating itaguyod hanggang sa
the next thing that some of you have copies, we don't have enough of it. The next thing on the program will be something about public interest lawyering to be read by June Atienza. Romeo, public interest.
Luckily, I brought this piece. I didn't think that I was going to read it because I didn't get any confirmation. At any rate, the piece that I'm going to read is from a speech by Romeo in September, and this was put in the internet and need to reproduce it and send it to all of us. So it's in reading the piece, I've cut a lot. Lito has already cut a lot, he said, but I've cut a lot just for the because of the time that the little time that we have. But it should give us a flavor of Rome's work because this is what he did in the Philippines. The public interest lawyering. He gave this talk on September 18, 2010, 2 years ago. And he divides this talk into about 6 parts, and I'm just going to go fast, hopefully. But I'd just like to give you the feeling of what he was doing in the Philippines. First, he starts with the context in the Philippines, and this is how he writes. By reason of their training, legal education and experience in law practice, lawyers are generally conservative and naturally inclined to defend the establishment. It is also true that legal education in the Philippines and the educational system in general have been so structured and oriented to serve elite and foreign interests. And it cannot be denied that quite a number in our profession, in opting to serve the interest of the elite, have identified and sometimes merged their interest with that of their clients and have completely abandoned their ethical values. They became conspirators in the plunder of our economy, the exploitation of our workers and peasants, and the repression of our people. However, at crucial junctures in our history, he continues, we produce passionately committed people's lawyers like Apolinario Mabini, Jose Abad Santos, Laro M. Recto, Jose Diokno, and Lorenzo Taniada. The Marcos dictatorship showed the flowering of people's lawyering, with many young lawyers in all parts of the country taking the people's side versus military and political repression. These lawyers joined FLAG, Mabini, and other human rights lawyers organizations. In the United States, the New York-based Filipino Lawyers Committee for Human Rights similarly responded to the challenge by supporting the people's movement and by exposing and denouncing human rights violations and suppression of our freedoms. Then he goes on into what he understands or what he believes public interest lawyering is for him. What is it? And he explains this by contrasting it to traditional free legal aid. He says, the fundamental difference between free legal aid and public interest law is that the people's lawyers extend legal services to the poor, not merely because the client cannot afford to pay legal fees, but because they believe that the client's poverty and the injustice committed against them result from a social system that needs to be changed. The people's lawyers emerge as a response to social inequities, particularly human rights abuses, and to the aspirations of the poor for a just and humane society. The people's lawyers derive their mandate from the poor people's struggle for justice, not from the government, not from the law, and certainly not from a selfish material agenda. Commitment to social change, he continues, therefore, is an essential component of their legal services. Unlike the typical pro bono lawyer or legal aid lawyer, the people's lawyers do not limit themselves to the generally accepted interpretation and use of the law to uphold and protect their clients' interests. They know that in an elite-dominated society, the law is the expression of elite interests. Instead, they take a critical view of the law and what the law should be from the perspective of the disenfranchised or marginalized client. Then he goes on to what he calls basic principles of public interest law or lawyering. There are some basic principles, he says. First, people's lawyers should involve themselves in causes, cases, and issues that fundamentally affect the lives of a large number of people, usually a sector of society or even the whole society itself. Second, we must bear in mind that these issues arose from a conflict of rights or interest and from the exploitation and oppression of the numerous poor by the tiny privileged sector and or government policies or programs. Third, unlike the traditional lawyer, the people's lawyers view the legal issue in the larger context of social problems. Fourth, the people's lawyers initiate and assist in a process whereby the issue is utilized for organizing and raising the social awareness, unity, and militancy of the people and those who support their cause. Sounds like Romy. Fifth, the legal battle is not confined to the courtroom. People's lawyers employ creative forms of collective action, mobilizing and utilizing the people's strength, unity, and militancy, bringing the issues to the public, and rallying support for the client's cause. And finally, the people's lawyers interact with clients in a mutually beneficial way, such that they learn or deepen their commitment to the client's struggle for the empowerment and betterment of their lives. The relationship is broadened from a more professional one to a unity of understanding of the problems of society, the common goals for fundamental reforms, and the role of the people's struggles. And then he asks, who are the beneficiaries or clients of public interest law or lawyering? And number one, he says, the peasants in their struggle for genuine land reform and their legal battle against land grabbing and eviction. This is quite close to me because I used to, in the Philippines, I used to be with the Federation of Free Farmers organizing peasant farmers. Two, the workers in their struggle to decent wages and working conditions. Three, the urban poor and informal settlers, oftentimes disparagingly called squatters. Four, the migrant workers in the defense of their human rights under national and international law. Fifth, five, the small fisher folk in their struggle to defend their fishing grounds against the intrusions of local and foreign fishing magnates. Six, the indigenous peoples in the defense of their ancestral domain against land grabbers and local and foreign mining companies. Seven, political victims of violations of human rights, civil and political rights, such as extrajudicial killings, involuntary disappearances, torture, illegal arrests, and arbitrary detention committed by the state through its police, military, and paramilitary forces. 8. Women in their struggle for equal rights and against all forms of violence against their persons and discrimination. And 9. The youth in their struggle for empowerment and meaningful participation in the movement for change. And finally, 10. The public in general on legal issues like environmental protection and consumer rights. And then he gives examples of how these principles have worked under public, was followed in terms of public interest lawyering. And he cites 2 examples. I'm not going in detail to those because it will, it's quite detailed. But he mentions 2 examples. The first example is the case that they took, the Public Interest Law Center took under his leadership 45,000 farm workers and employees of Hacienda Luisita, the property of the former president, Corazon Aquino. It's a 6,453 hectare sugarcane plantation in Tarlac, owned by the family of the late president. In 1988, the hacienda should have been covered by the government's agrarian reform program and subdivided and distributed to the actual tillers. But because of the clan's political clout, they continued to own and control the land, so it was exempted. Worse, the Cohamco family converted a big portion of the land into commercial, industrial, and residential tracts and leisure farm. These converted areas were sold and the family appropriated unto themselves the proceeds from the sales. Meantime, the area being worked on by the farm workers shrank and their daily income likewise dropped. In response, the employees and farm workers staged a strike that paralyzed the operations of the entire farm, including the sugar mill and the real estate business for 1 year. In 2004, the Philippine Army and police and Hacienda Luisita's private army retaliated, resulting in the massacre of 7 strikers and the wounding of more than 40 others. Because of the farm union's strength and militancy, its broad network of supporters locally and overseas, the public sympathy generated for the strikers, the government of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo was pressured to revoke and cancel the stock distribution program which was being applied to the hacienda. It then placed the hacienda under compulsory acquisition, a scheme that will enable farm workers and employees to own the land by paying the government in installments over several years. So up to now, the struggle in the farm continues with the farm workers. So that's one case that they had held under this public interest lawyering. The second one is the big case which I guess all of us know or have heard, the Flor Contemplacion case in Singapore. A domestic helper sentenced to death for a crime she did not commit. But because of the neglect of the Philippine government, they were a little bit late. The Integrated Bar of the Philippines, of which Rome is a member, were a little bit late in getting into the case because of the government's very late public attention for it. And so what happened was they couldn't save her life. She was hanged. So that case, he says, Romy says, is now part of history of Filipino migrants' worker struggle for a better life. But we are consoled by the fact that because of this case, the Philippine government has since shown a little more sensitivity to the problems of the so-called modern heroes. Finally, he talks of the problems against the development of public interest law in the Philippines. Why it cannot develop as fast as it should. And he says, In the Philippines, two major factors impede the development of public interest law practice as a truly viable alternative law practice. These are the problem of legitimacy and the problem of material base. In 1991, the IBP, the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, conducted a survey among its members on whether public interest law practice could be considered as an accepted field of specialization among lawyers and therefore legitimate. To our great frustration, he says, many considered it unknown, not viable, a radical undertaking, a subversive field, and therefore those engaged in it were queer and subversive. 2. The problem of legitimacy remains a big challenge. Our goal is to make public interest lawyering a strong option for law students and young lawyers. Public interest law practice still lacks a strong and stable material base to support it. We have to develop our client base, the peasants, the workers, the urban poor, and the fisher folk, the indigenous people, the migrant workers. I do not see any reason why in a highly satisfied society, stratified society controlled by the tiny elite, constituting 3% of the population, the remaining 97% cannot serve as a reliable material base for public interest law practice. It's not the resources alone coming from our poor clients that matter. It is also their recognitions of the value of our services and that they alone can make public interest law practice truly viable. And like Romy, very simple and humble, he ends this talk with a very short paragraph. After long years of experience as a people's lawyer, I can honestly say it has been a treasured journey of self-fulfillment and rewarding achievement. I know it will be the same for all others who choose to tread this path. So, spoke our dear friend, Romy Capullo.
The next part is a song, and we hope that everybody knows there are not enough programs around, but if you would cluster around those that have, how many programs? The words of this next song is Ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa. But this part, if we will be guided by the original group, is here. Can you identify yourselves since it's not in print? I don't want to read it. This, you are...
Good evening, we're from Bayanihan Cultural Collective. We'll be singing Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa, an offering for
pag-ibig sa binubuong lupa. Aling pag-ibig pa, wala lang, wala. And now the next part will be remembrances to be presented by another than before.
So many things were written in tribute to Romy by folks in the Philippines, but hardly any mention of our work here together 1980 to 85 thereabouts. The anti-martial law organizations in front of the consulate worked with Philippine nurses to fill SIR funding, field search the Philippine Center for Immigrant Rights funded by Romy. Pag-asa forums and other forums on Philippine history and current conditions, and frequent social gatherings. So many anecdotes, stories, jokes, the political work and atmosphere of that time, the camaraderie, and yes, the fun. The early 80s were a time when everyone was still united and the going was good. We were all fighting for a cause, resistance to the dictatorship, and we were all decades younger too. So many meetings, conferences, protests, newsletters, organizing, arousing, mobilizing, singing, chanting, indignation, denunciation. So many manifestos, statements, flyers, posters, articles, press releases. So let me share some remembrances of our time together from a couple of people as well as myself. One is by Elmer Ordonez, and I quote, I met Romy Capulong sometime in the early 80s when we exiles in Canada and the US were organizing Ugnayan. We held organizing meetings in several major cities. We were distinct from the earlier KDP, which had evolved from the original anti-martial law movement to a group with a socialist agenda. Ugnayan was also different from the movement for a free Philippines led by Raul Manglapus and Sonny Alvarez. When Benigno Aquino came in 1981, Alvarez formed the Ninoy Aquino movement that drew more expats from the disenfranchised elite. Major cities had anti-dictatorship groups, each with the orientation or ideology of the main groups above. There was an American organization, the Friends of the Filipino People, headed by Dr. Daniel Boone Schirmer, which worked well with Filipino groups interested in social change after Marcos. Dante Simbulan, an ex-political detainee and academic, recalled, quote, a memorable event which pitted the elite opposition and the pro-people opposition, 3 Ateneans and 3 UP alumni. It was a friendly encounter in 1981 when the dictator Marcos visited the United Nations. The anti-Marcos groups and members of the National Council of Churches of the USA sponsored the forum at the church building located at the UN Plaza fronting the United Nations. The panelists were Romeo Capulong, Charito Planas, and Dante Simbulan on one side. The other side consisted of Ninoy Aquino, Raul Manglapus, and Ernesto Maceda from Ateneo. When questions were asked during the open forum what would happen after the ouster of Marcos, the panel of Aquino, Manglapus, and Maceda said the aim was to replace the dictatorship and, quote, restore democracy, unquote. Capulong and Simbulan argued that they must do more than that because the kind of democracy that Aquino, Manglapus, and Maceda wanted to restore was nothing more than the return of the few wealthy family dynasties, the rule of the oligarchy. The audience concluded that it was like a UP Ateneo debate. Well, guess what? The change of power holder was indeed merely a repetition of the alternation of elite factions. The Marcos family is still very much around. In the Philippines, where elite families are interlocking by blood, association, and allied business interests, persecution or prosecution of defeated former power holders cannot be thoroughly implemented. There is no shortage of protectors and intercessors who can blunt or even prevent honest-to-goodness criminal prosecution and recovery of ill-gotten wealth. The anniversary of martial law comes every year to remind us of the efforts and sacrifices of those within and outside the Philippines to end the continuing repression and install genuine democracy in the country. Another remembrance is by Noel Lake, and I again quote, "I first met Romy in New York in 1980. So Romy invited me to a summer picnic of a group that had separated from the erstwhile Philippine Support Group KDP and formed another called PAG-ASA, short for Philippine American Group Advocates for Social Action. Romy criticized the KDP leadership for forsaking the focus on Philippine issues. Romy helped organize the Filipino communities in New York and Filipino American lawyers to support the struggle for human rights in the Philippines. He always saw an opportunity to broaden his lawyering by involving his clients in the opposition to the worsening political and human rights situation in the Philippines. Lobbying the U.S. Congress to stop supporting the Marcos regime was an important contribution of the U.S.-based Filipinos to help restore democracy in the Philippines, and Romy helped tremendously in this endeavor. Romy was close to Ninoy Aquino in the Philippines, but in the U.S., Romy chose to distance himself from the traditional politicians' anti-Marcos movement led by Manglapos and Sonny Alvarez. Instead, he aligned himself with the progressive and mass-oriented anti-Marcos Filipino organizations. He was instrumental in the formation of the Alliance for Philippine Concerns, a nationwide network of Filipino organizations in the U.S. that opposed the Marcos dictatorship. This wide network of Filipino community leaders helped the APC gain credibility. Instead of just doing plain lawyering work, Romy founded the Philippine Center for Immigrant Rights. And according to Romy, immigrants have rights that must be protected and asserted instead of just complying with the strict U.S. immigration rules. And he always managed to link immigration issues with the political issues in the Philippines. He had many nurses as clients who he introduced to the anti-Marcos network. And my own remembrance, Romy Capullo was the first movement person I met in the U.S. sometime in 1981. He invited me to his law office at the time in Washington Heights. He moved it subsequently to a building on the corner of 42nd Street and Broadway, now the site of the Condé Nast building in Times Square before it was Disneyfied. Romy introduced me to members of PAG-ASA, an anti-ML group of PhilAms who published a newsletter, sponsored forums, and participated in various activities, including an annual Asian American festival held at the time in Lincoln Center, Damrush Park, where I still remember Rudy Prudentes scraping a block of ice for the halo-halo we sold as we displayed our anti-ML literature. Aside from PAG-ASA, we eventually formed a pretty stable group of 7 or so people, meeting a couple of more times a month, and later on the Alliance for Philippine Concerns, an umbrella organization. We had a good division of labor, who would be primarily assigned to organizing, writing statements, drawing up slogans for placards, MC rallies, and so forth. Romy was particularly effective in mobilizing members of the Filipino community, clients, and fellow lawyers. Things heated up after the assassination of Ninoy. We coordinated to some extent, though warily, with the New York section of the Manglapos Sonny Alvarez and the erstwhile movement-aligned KDP group, who were closer to each other than with us, but we could mobilize and hold bigger affairs than they did. I went to Romy's home many times, sometimes with my wife and son enjoying his family's hospitality, aside from get-together in Rosa's place, Ruth's place, or somebody else's place. I wasn't with Romy, though, when he and a few others had dinner one time in Little Italy. The waiter treated them disrespectfully, so Romy upturned the table, or something of the sort. What guts! Somehow they were able to walk away uneventfully in mafia country. Finally, it is always with a tinge of nostalgia and loss when contact lapses with old friends due to circumstances. All the more when it becomes impossible to get together again when one of them passes away. All men must die, but their life can vary in significance. To serve the people wholeheartedly and devotedly to the point of sacrificing health and personal welfare is not an easy thing to do, and only a few can do it. Romy was one of those willing to stick his neck out, but he lived the full life and served to his utmost, and that is the best thing one can hope for.
We are Mr. Romy Gary Labao. Did I say that correctly? Labao? Labao? Yes, thank you, Labao. Who will share remembrances of Romy through a video.
Yeah, so before I play the video, I just wanted to give a little talk. My name is Gary Labao. As mentioned, I'm with Bagong Alyansa Makabayan USA chapter. I'm sure you're all familiar with the work of Bayan, from which Attorney Capulong has represented numerous times. Also, we're very proud to be in front of you because as Bayan USA chapter, we are the ones continuing the work that Kasamang Romy has started way back in the day, because we believe that the struggle for national freedom and democracy in the Philippines is not over yet. So, ito po ang aming handog para kay Kasamang Romy Capulong.
See if I can get the lights out, huh? Is that better? Yeah. Good?
That's fine.
Is that all right now?
That's good.
Magsasabi paalam kasama, paalam sa inyo hanggang sa muling pagtatagpo. Salamat sa inyong papayo gabay, salamat sa inyong pagdamay. Sa mga sanggaling tayo'y nagsama, sa hirap utong matuwa. Sa aking paglisan ay laging kasama, sa bawat hakbang
maraming salamat po. Again, we'd like to introduce our organization, Bagong Alyasang Makabayan. Ito po yung nagpatuloy ng pakikibaka sa Pilipinas, even though martial law is no longer around. We know that the remnants and the practice of martial law still continues even to this day. And so, muli nagpupugay po kami para kay kasamang Romy Capulong, and the struggle continues even here in the belly of the beast. Patuloy po tayo makikibaka hanggang makamit natin ang tunay na kalayaan, pambansang demokrasya ng Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
The next on the program is a remembrance by a reading of Remembrance by Attorney Edre Olalian. I'm not sure who is to do this.
It's Karen.
Oh, Karen.
You have it.
She's coming.
The next one first.
I saw me. Remember and friends and family.
We can sing first.
Sige, ka.
Let's sing a song.
All right. Now, as Karen is trying to put that part together, no? Let's just begin with, if you don't mind the change, remembrances by friends and family. And as soon as Karen is ready, why she'll give us the signal, and then we get that reading into the remembrances. So who will start? Ross. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ross Lee. I used to be, for some time, president of ASA. And Romy and I, it was a group of us, we were very, very close. And whenever I think of the times I spent with Romy, this is just one little remembrance. Almost inevitably, what brings a smile to my face are the memories of his interaction with Sister Caridad, who is another member of our group. As you may remember, Sister Caridad was our staunchest feminist in the movement. She was an activist for gender equality as much as she was for all the other causes of the movement. She was such a feminist even in the religious order. So much so that one time, I remember, when she was very unhappy with Pope John